In 2019, YouTube was caught violating the Child Online Privacy Protection Act, or COPPA. Since settling, YouTube has enacted new policies that are meant to serve as a smokescreen so they can dodge responsibility and scapegoat creators. As such, for my own protection, it is my obligation to advise you that this video is not aimed at children. My target audience is not children. Parental discretion is advised. Hey guys, how's everyone doing? This is Sir Jedi Sentinel, and welcome back to Sentinel Reviews. Dark Shadows, the Quentin Collins collection, continues with Operation Victor, released in July of 2012, written by Jonathan Morris, directed by Darren Gross. Operation Victor stars David Selby, Faye Masterson, and Terry Malloy. As always, I will be going through spoilers, so if you have not heard it yet, in the description box below will be the link to Big Finish's website where you can buy Operation Victor, or you can get it as part of the Quentin Collins Collection digital bundle. Operation Victor is also the final part of the World War II trilogy, and it is when we are now past the halfway point of the Quentin Collins collection. And something happened with this story. I don't know exactly what it was, but I found that on my second listen through, I didn't like it as much as the first time I heard it. So I've talked about this before. A little bit of my process is when I review a Big Finish audio, I try to listen to it multiple times just to make sure I have a good grasp on the audio, have a good grasp on my thoughts. So, that first preliminary listen is my first impressions, and then I give it a second listen just to make sure, okay, this is how I feel about it, and make sure I have a good memory on the events that happened. I will try to do a third listen just to really solidify, my thoughts on it, but that doesn't always happen. And I really should have given it a third listen, given my drastic change in opinion between my first and second listen. Because while I really enjoyed it the first time, the second time around, I just found it okay. My thoughts leaning a little bit towards more it being average. And if you've seen me try to review a title I find average, strap in. We're in for a very long, rambling, somewhat dull ride. So, again, sort of right after the events of the previous two stories, London's burning and the creeping fog, Quentin is trying to enjoy himself in a movie house, when suddenly the house is beset by British soldiers who have decided he doesn't get a say anymore. He is fighting this war, especially because with Quentin's knowledge of the supernatural, he is the only one who can really help on this mission. A British agent, a young woman named Sally Green, has recruited Quentin to investigate a Nazi scientist named Dr. Moloch. They believe he is doing something. He is creating a supernatural weapon for the war effort. So, given Quentin's refusal to participate in the war, they gassed the movie house he was in, knocked him out, and put him on a plane before he regained consciousness. And my summary here really sort of shows a problem with this story. The pacing is so frenetic. It doesn't allow really anything to build up. You talk about something, and then it happens. There's really no tension because the story doesn't allow time for it to build up. And that is really one of the and I'm not saying it's not scary. I'm not going to criticize Dark Shadows for not doing horror because Dark Shadows is so much more than horror. It's romance, it's suspense, it's thriller. It really has the gamut to be anything it wants to be. But, this story is obviously really trying to rely on tension. And the tension just isn't there because the chaotic pacing doesn't allow it to build. The performances are okay here. David Selby is giving the strongest performance, but it's not one of Quentin's best stories because, how do I want to approach it? I don't want to say he has no agency. Given how this story progresses, he has plenty of agency, but I'll stick a pin in that and hopefully try to get back on it. But Faye Masterson, as I said, plays this British agent named Sally Green, revealed to be a double agent working for Dr. Moloch, and she's fine, but her performance doesn't really sell it, especially because a couple times in this story she turns on a dime. She reveals to be she's revealed to be a double agent, and then she's very quickly revealed to secretly be working against Dr. Moloch, which, again, just like I said, you don't really get the impact of, because the story moves at such a frantic pace. It doesn't really let that sink in, so that, there's no emotional bond between the listener and the characters. Terry Malloy, though, he gives a good performance, but he's really restrained here, and it's very easy to see why. Because Dr. Moloch, as I said, is a Nazi scientist who is performing inhumane, sadistic experiments. And, it's really easy to see why Terry Malloy, who is still good, is restraining himself, because go too far, and he's just playing Davros. And even in one scene where he's talking about his plans to create these super soldiers, because that's ultimately what he's doing, he's harnessing the abilities of supernatural creatures to create super soldiers so he can overthrow Hitler and become the ruler of the Third Reich and the world. And the way he delivers that monologue, it's very obvious that it's just Davros. And, oh shoot, where do I want to go from there? Because, like I said, I've talked about the issues. The performances are decent, but not great. The plot is very straightforward. Quentin is recruited to stop a Nazi scientist. The pacing is frenetic. There is not a lot to say about this story. And I'm only at 6.5 minutes. I really need to find something else to say. There are seeds of good ideas here. Like, for example, it's revealed that Sally is a zombie. As a child, she died, and Dr. Moloch brought her back to life, which is really the driving force between why she hates Dr. Moloch. And it also leads into, and at that moment, that reveal, Faye Masterson does give her best performance in this story. And Dr. Moloch's death is really good too. Quentin and Sally go through freeing all the supernatural creatures he's acquired, and during the confrontation between Quentin and Moloch, they come in and all these creatures come in and tear him to pieces in a really grisly scene. And the story ends on a cliffhanger, basically after Moloch's invention has been destroyed, the Prometheus Chamber he calls it, which is how he was going to infuse soldiers with these supernatural attributes. Him and Sally decide to travel the world, and I don't think I've seen the story where they do that, because the next story in the set does not dwell on that point. But yeah, there's not a lot to say. Operation Victor is a fairly straightforward action story. Again, the pacing is frantic, the performances are decent but not great. There are seeds of good ideas, but they aren't fully utilized. I'm going to give Operation Victor a 6 out of 10. But those are just my thoughts. Have you heard it? Start a conversation in the comments below, and join me next week when the Quentin Collins collection will continue. Quentin is in a very bizarre situation in The Haunted Refrain. And remember to like, comment, subscribe, click the bell next to subscribe to get notifications when I upload, and in the description box below, you will find the link to my Twitter where you can follow me and get updates on the channel. This is your Jedi Sentinel, and I'll see you guys next time.